I guess what I do here, I don't think it'll work, but I guess my one out is to click Trick Room with both of my restricteds and hope that they only KO one of them. It is possible that it works. The Heavy Slaver to Calyrex. Oh, they don't KO! That's so bad! I reversed my own Trick Room. If that had KO'd, I had it. You know what? I'm going to do the same exact play again. You think I won't? We are here once again for VGC Legends. You probably know it by now. It's the series where I spin a wheel. I get a random legendary Pokemon that exists in Scarlet and Violet. I speed build a team around that Pokemon. Sometimes the team is pretty good, sometimes not so much, but I make an honest effort at it on the spot. And I try that team out on the VGC Regulation I ladder. I do this for two reasons. One is that I just like legendary Pokemon. I enjoy their presence in the world of Pokemon, and I want to give each of them their due. And the other is that by speed building a bunch of teams, I can try a number of different strategies, have some fun along the way, and maybe even learn some things. And of course, we are now more than halfway through the wheel, and I am calling out every single time that there has not yet been a single legendary selected from Generation 2, because I've gotten a little stitious, and I'm wondering if I keep mentioning this every time, whether one will ever be picked by the wheel any earlier than the point at which they're the only ones left. So let's find out what'll happen this time. Blown past Gen 2 once again. We're going to stop on Gen 4, and it's going to be Cresselia. Alright, funnily enough, I was actually just thinking about this one last night. Alright, so genuinely last night before bed, for no particular reason that I know of, I was just kind of idly thinking about what I would do if and when the wheel gives me Cresselia. I think it just kind of stood out to me as a Pokemon that's considered not very good in this format, but that has some obvious strategies that can work with it. Although, it's certainly not the only one of those on the wheel, so I don't know why it's the one that came to mind. But Cresselia has a handful of things going for it, right? It's very bulky. It gets Trick Room. It gets Lunar Blessing. And it gets Levitate. So it's unaffected by a partner's Earthquake, notably. In earlier formats, Cresselia was often paired with Ursaluna, because you can fire off a powerful Guts-boosted Earthquake. Ursaluna is slow, so it plays well in Trick Room, and Cresselia will be unaffected by the Earthquake. The only little bit of anti-synergy there is that Cresselia's Lunar Blessing will heal Ursaluna's burn, which you actually do want Ursaluna to have. But as long as Ursaluna still has the Flame Orb, it of course can get burned promptly again. And if Trick Room is up, your Ursaluna is probably slower than your Cresselia, so you get the attack off before the Lunar Blessing anyway. For a restricted partner, another option, I think, is to pair Cresselia with Groudon. Right? Groudon can play much the same kind of game. It has a very slightly higher base attack stat than Ursaluna, but of course it doesn't get Guts, so Ursaluna will actually hit harder. But Groudon's also faster, but it's still relatively slow for a restricted Pokemon. It certainly can work as the Earthquake spamming partner next to Cresselia, but I actually do think Ursaluna is probably better, so I think that we don't need to commit to Groudon as a restricted Pokemon here. But it's an option. I like Dialga a lot as a restricted partner for Cresselia. I would say Origin Form for the slightly better bulk. And that does seem to be what people are running. Dialga is a restricted Pokemon that can also set Trick Room. It's also relatively slow for restricted. It has decent bulk and pretty good defensive typing in Steel and Dragon. And it gets Telepathy. So with Telepathy, Dialga can also partner with Ursaluna, and Ursaluna can also throw off Earthquakes next to Dialga as well as next to Cresselia. Or you can just have Dialga fire off strong attacks in Trick Room, while Cresselia supports it, again, with the Lunar Blessing, and by being a second Trick Room setter. This composition is... so if it wants to spam Earthquake, I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be doing that all the time, but I guess you want to keep in mind how to deal with flying types. You can run ice coverage on Cresselia, but it doesn't hit very hard. But it's certainly an option. Grass types, most notably Rillaboom is a problem, right? Because Rillaboom gets a priority Grassy Glide, which can threaten Ursaluna. And also, just by setting Grassy Terrain, it weakens Earthquake, because there are a handful of ground-type attacks that have their power nerfed when Grassy Terrain is in effect, and Earthquake is one of those. Rillaboom and Incineroar cores seem kind of scary here, because of course Incineroar can intimidate Ursaluna. Ursaluna typically runs a Flame Orb, because it gets massively powerful by doing that, but it doesn't then run a Clear Amulet. Of course, Incineroar is vulnerable to Earthquake or Headlong Rush from Ursaluna, but or Facade if it's running a Terra type other than Ghost. But even so, it can make Ursaluna kind of sad. And then if you see a typical core with like Zamazenta, Rapid Strike, or Shifu, certainly outside of Trick Room, there are some ways that they can mess with this kind of composition. So I probably should not run Groudon. I probably should keep those kinds of teams in mind with my second restricted slot. But before I think about that, I am going to take a quick look at the usual resources for this series. I've just opened up the Bologna special event here in Top Cut Explorer. I don't think we're going to find a Cresselia in the top 256, but it's not so crazy to me that I won't check. I will take a look, but I'm not going to bother with any other events. It's Bologna or bust here. If there's a Cresselia, it'll be low in the usage. There was not one at 1 use, none at 2, none at 3, and I don't think we have to check higher than that. So that's not going to be of any use here. Maybe someone used Cresselia at a different event, but I strongly enough doubt it that I'm not going to check. I do think Cresselia will probably show up on lunch stats. Yep, 1.44% usage. That's higher than some things we've used in this series. And actually, the most common restricted partners are Miraidon and Zamazenta, both with majority usage. I do think I prefer Dialga on this team concept. But Dialga is not even showing up in the stats. The only other restricted here is Ice Rider Calyrex. Sorry, Shadow Rider Calyrex, which is itself a little odd. You can see most Cresselia run Trick Room. But I guess they're used for teams that go very fast or also have a Trick Room mode. So you can see that Miraidon, Iron Hands, and Sneasler are all common partners. Iron Hands is powered up by the Electric Terrain and can play a slow offensive game in Trick Room. Same base speed as Ursaluna. Miraidon and Chien-Pao can go fast offense. Sneasler is probably running an Electric Seed on these teams, so it can go turbo fast. There's no Tailwind user here. There is Volcarona if we scroll down a little bit. Those sometimes run Tailwind. But for the most part, you'd use something like Sneasler, maybe a Scarf Miraidon to go very fast. So that's an option. I was thinking something more like Hard Trick Room, but we could build a fast mode into this. Given that I'm concerned about dealing with Rillaboom and Incineroar type cores, and maybe a Mungus stuff as well, I mean, I could run a Safety Goggles on Cresselia, right? And then it can't be spored, and it can use Lunar Blessing to cure Spore on its partners. So Mungus is not necessarily that scary. Electric Seed is actually the most common item by far on Cresselia, because it's being run mostly with Miraidon. Actually more than 80% of the time, yeah. Mental Herb, Rocky Helmet, those are both good, but I'm leaning Safety Goggles, and I could do Terra Dark. That's also not popular, though. Terra Fairy, much more popular. Makes sense. It can really make the most of Cresselia's bulk, because it's a solid neutral defensive type in this format, and it also turns the Dark weakness into a resistance, although Dark does that as well. But I can eliminate any need for Mental Herb, at least in some matchups if I run Terra Dark. So I am leaning Terra Dark and Safety Goggles. That makes Amoonguss less of an issue. But yeah, the Incineroar Rillaboom stuff still, it would be nice to have a restricted Pokemon that can blow that up. It's probably not Ice Rider Calyrex, although that is very much an option on this team. It would be very strong, it might be worthwhile anyway. I mean, it would threaten Rillaboom. And I'm not as afraid of Incineroar as I am of Rillaboom. I don't know if there's actually a better option than Ice Rider Calyrex. Let's see what we find here. Lunala, not really what I'm looking for. Zamazenta actually wouldn't be bad. Zamazenta is very strong into Rillaboom and Incineroar stuff. That might be the best answer. I'm a Steel type restricted already. I could do Chien-Pao, Zamazenta, then I can also pair Chien-Pao with Ursaluna, hit even harder, but I do think I actually prefer Ice Rider Calyrex. It also gives me another very strong attacker in Trick Room, and another Trick Room setter. So then what do I want to close this team out? I'm not running Miraidon, so the future Paradox and Unburdened stuff is not necessarily of much interest. Breaking opposing Zamazenta could still be tricky here. Ursaluna can help, but that's a tough matchup. Same goes for Dialga. I do need to actually be alert to opposing Zamazenta, and then I also need to not get blown up by Shadow Rider Calyrex, which is often paired with Zamazenta, so I might still need more for those kinds of teams. My own Incineroar would help with the Shadow Rider, not so much with the Zamazenta. Something like Cerulege or Chandelure would fit the Trick Room theming and would be very helpful into Zamazenta, but not so much into Shadow Rider Calyrex. Actually be fairly weak into that unless it's something like a Shadow Sneak Cerulege. I think that gets Shadow Sneak. Even then, though, they can Terrastalize. That does make them vulnerable to other things. What about Volcarona? I think Volcarona could be really good on this team. Volcarona is super helpful into Zamazenta. It gives me Rage Powder, so I have Redirection. It gives me Tailwind if I want it. This is not a team that's meant to go fast, but there may be some matchups where it's advantageous. It's something to think about, at least. Is it helpful to Shadow Rider? A little bit. It gets Struggle Bug. But maybe I still want a Dark type to close this out. Or is there another weakness that I'm not considering? I don't feel too bad about the Miraidon matchup. It might be fairly dependent on getting Trick Room up, but I think it's okay if I do that. Opposing Ice Rider Calyrex, Volcarona is actually helpful into that as well. Dialga ought to be of some help into that. It might not hurt to have something else to hit it very hard. Honestly, everything's starting to come up in Incineroar. Although now that I already have a bulky fire type, I'm not sure I really want that. Let's see what dark types exist. But a dark type would be helpful into Ice Rider and Shadow Rider, obviously. I could run back Galarian Moltres, actually. That's an option. There might be a case for Champao. Actually, Brute Bonnet could be pretty good on this team. I think Brute Bonnet makes a lot of sense. But let's go over the options. A Dragon, probably not. Iron Jugulus, King Gambit. You don't really see too many. King Gambit also has the same base speed as Ice Rider and Ursaluna. That's awkward. Some Pokemon that you don't see too often here anymore. There's Mabostiff, but I don't really know what that does other than Intimidate. Galarian Moltres is honestly probably not the worst idea. Screen Sableye might not be a bad idea, actually. Right? Sableye gets Fake Out, Screens, Prankster Will-O-Wisp, some other stuff. Can't run everything at once, obviously. You only get 4 moves, but honestly, Sableye seems worth considering on this team. Tyranitar might actually be worth considering on this team. This team doesn't have too much trouble dealing with its own sand. Tyranitar is not a crazy idea at all, nor is Umbreon. We'll have to pick... nor is Wo-Chien, actually. Alright, I think... even Single Striker Shifu. Actually, Single Striker Shifu could... Single Striker Shifu might be the call. Alright, let's say... Alright, so the options I think are Brute Bonnet. I don't think it's Moltres, although that would be fun. Brute Bonnet, Sableye, Tyranitar, or Shifu, Umbreon. Very different group of Pokemon. Umbreon is kind of fun because it fits the moon theme with Cresselia and Ursaluna. Otherwise, I don't know that it really has the kind of offensive presence that I want on a team like this. Sableye Screens could be really good here. I think that's still a viable option. I think Tyranitar maybe a little bit exploitable in some matchups. It's not a bad idea, but I don't know that it's the best of these ideas. I forgot about Wo-Chien. Wo-Chien is an option too. Actually, Wo-Chien weakens my physical attackers when it's on the field, and that's a lot of my offense, so I don't think I like that so much. Also, I don't have that much for special offense. It's kind of just Dialga and maybe Volcarona, depending on the details of its set. So Wo-Chien, not that great. On this team, I mean. I think it's probably Brute Bonnet or Urshifu. Urshifu is nice because it helps me maximize my Trick Room turns by making it harder for opponents to protect. Brute Bonnet is nice, of course, because of the Spore and Rage Powder threats. Brute Bonnet also gives me grass coverage, which could be useful for this team into Water Terras. That honestly might be the deciding factor. They both get Sucker Punch, which is very valuable here. And Brute Bonnet giving me another Redirector would also create more openings to set Trick Room. I think this is a tough choice. I think there are a lot of good options. Single Striker Shifu might genuinely be the best one. I think there's a very good chance of that. But I'm leaning Brute Bonnet. And I think the moves are Spore, Rage Powder, Sucker Punch, and Seed Bomb. That can help Calyrex break through Water Terrors as well. Probably a Covert Cloak because I'm not running Protect. Probably want to boost defense. I probably want Terra Water of my own to help stand up to Ice Rider Calyrex. Probably want to boost defense. So, some amount of investment in that. I think an Impish Nature ought to help. Hypothetically, let's say I maximize HP, or close to max. I need this much to be higher than uninvested attack. What does a Brute Bonnet spread look like? Let's just look at Munch stats. I don't use Brute Bonnet a lot. Okay, a lot of them don't run attack investment. A lot of them run very little to no attack invest. There's not a spread on here that has more than 4 attack EVs. Alright, well that clears things up a little bit. Volcarona, probably Terra, Water, or Grass. What does Volcarona want to help deal with? Rillaboom, Incineroar, Zamazenta. I think Grass is probably okay. I don't know that I need Tailwind on this team. I don't know that it hurts to have, but I think I might prefer just like Rage Powder, Struggle Bug, Fiery Dance, and Protect. Something like that. Maybe a Rocky Helmet. Flame Body, of course. Calyrex, probably typical Glacial Lance stuff. Trick Room, High Horsepower. The Terra type, I don't know what Terra type is best on Ice Rider Calyrex these days. I'm going to say Fairy. I think Fairy's worth trying out. Dialga probably wants, like, Flash Cannon, a Dragon Attack, maybe something more consistent than Draco Meteor, but I think Draco Meteor is at least worth considering. I can run Earth Power on it, or I probably don't need to with so much ground coverage. I can run Flamethrower on it. I think I'm just going to go Trick Room Protect to start, and I can change my mind if I want. Dialga is weak to Fighting and Ground, is that it? So, there's no Terra type that perfectly covers those things. Honestly, just slapping Fairy onto this as well seems like a plausibly good idea. Most Origin Dialga are running Terra Fairy. It is, in fact, a majority. Might as well look at the moves, too. Yeah, got all the most common moves. Alright, so my gut looks pretty good on that one. This will be pretty typical Ursaluna, I think. Terra Ghost, Facade, Headlong Rush, Protect, Earthquake, Protect. Did I remember to put Telepathy on Dialga? I did, and then Cresselia, Trick Room, Lunar Blessing. I think Helping Hand is for sure a good idea. I saw it in the most used moves, and I have, you know, big Earthquake, big Glacial Lance. Maybe electric coverage somewhere on here would be nice, like an Iron Hands or something, but Iron Hands creates so many speed issues. That base 50 speed tier is pretty crowded, and I think Brute Bonnet is more useful for helping me deal with horses. Unless I want Rapid Strike, or Single Strike, or Shifu for that. Last move on Cresselia, I think I want a damaging move. I'm not very comfy running a Pokemon with no damaging moves. I'm not thrilled with not having Protect on Cresselia either. I could drop Helping Hand for Protect. But I'm gonna say leave it like this. And Psychic or Ice Beam. Might as well go with the Stab for now. And that's about it. I'll figure out the spreads and whatnot. Otherwise, I think about covered everything here, and we'll cut to the final team. Alright, one thing I did forget to mention earlier, but it's come up before on this channel. The Ursaluna on this team is not quite running min speed. Ursaluna and Ice Rider Calyrex have the same base speed, so if I put both of them at the minimum, they would be speed tying. And given that this team wants Trick Room to be up, and given that Calyrex gets an attack boost whenever it takes a KO, my preference in a situation like this is to have Calyrex be 1 point slower than Ursaluna so that it will move first under Trick Room and Ursaluna won't snipe KOs from it. if they're on the field together. So Calyrex is at min speed, Ursaluna is 1 point higher, it has a speed IV of 2. The other thing, I don't usually talk about EVs in this series because they're not very interesting to me, and so I don't tend to put a lot of effort into them. Whenever you've caught a glance at the team builder in this series, you've probably seen a lot of 252, 252, 4 spreads, but I did use, in the end, the most common Brute Bonnet EV spread on Munch Stats, which has 164 EVs in defense with the defense boosting nature. And that's because of a good practice that I don't talk about much here because I don't talk much about EVs, which is EVing to the bump. If your nature boosts a particular stat because of the rounding involved, there are a couple of values at which the same number of EVs, so 8, up from the first 4, gives you a boost of 2 to your actual stat value instead of the usual boost of 1. And so I have hit that bump with Brute Bonnet and then put the rest in HP and special defense. Pretty simple stuff. Let's get on the ladder. Let's see what this Lunar duo of Cresselia and Ursaluna can do. I forgot to make Cresselia shiny, didn't I? Whoops. Genuinely, the only reason I don't do it before I show the paste is that it messes with the display here. So that means I have to generate the paste and then remember to make it shiny. Anyway. What am I doing? Battle options. Mess already. Automatically start timer. There we go. That'll last for the rest of the video. Here's a Miraidon Ice Rider team. They can obviously mess with my Trick Room with that Farigiraf. I was going to say I could Spore Farigiraf, but of course, not if Electric Terrain is up. So it might be a bit of a disadvantage here not having... Honestly, not having Wicked Blow to click into Farigiraf, or my own Terrain Setter to overwrite the Electric Terrain. It might be best that I either have like an Indeedee or something somewhere on this team, or that I have chosen Rapid Strike or Shifu after all. Sorry, I keep doing that. It's the more relevant one in the meta. I mean Single Strike or Shifu. That said, if I get Trick Room up, Ursaluna goes kind of crazy here, except into their Calyrex. And Volcarona can help with that. But neither Ursaluna nor Volcarona can set Trick Room, so I don't want to lead with both of them. Brute Bonnet's not that valuable here, again, because of... I mean, it's useful in the Calyrex to an extent, but the Electric Terrain is a real nerf to it. I think it might be worth my while to lead something like Cresselia or Ursaluna. The problem is, I don't want them to just mess with that with the Farigiraf lead, but I'm not sure I have much choice. I'll give it a try, and I'll bring my restricted... Do I need Volcarona? I'll bring my restricted duo on the back. As always, figuring out the synergies of this team and what gaps exist in them takes a little bit of time. They can counter my Trick Room with their own Trick Room here. They also can speed tie Ursaluna with Calyrex, so a lot of not ideal things. But I'm going to just try to set the Trick Room and scout what they do. And then I think I might actually change Brute Bonnet to Single Strike or Shifu between games. That'd be a pretty quick change, though. Maybe I shouldn't do it yet. They go straight for Woodhammer to Ursaluna. They go straight for Leech Seed into Cresselia. I think this is probably not min speed. This could be min speed Calyrex on a team like this. They don't have Tailwind, but they do have Iron Bundle for speed support, so it might not be. I am going to... This feels a little bit unnecessary, but I think I'm going to Terrasilize Ursaluna, so that it has a better chance of taking a Glacial Lance if it is a speed tie. Oh, it's not min speed Ursaluna. They also can just be slower. I think they're probably not, but they definitely might be. And I'm going to go Helping Hand and Earthquake. We're going to try to get that big damage combo off immediately. Like Shield. We underspeed the Calyrex. Do a little bit more than half. That's good. Cresselia is under some pressure from the Leech Seed, but of course, it can click Lunar Blessing. This turn, though, I'm going to go Helping Hand Earthquake again. They don't really have anything good to switch in on that, which is an issue for them, as much as I talked about the issues for my team here. They go with Shifu, Rapid Strike form. I'm guessing it has a Sash. Oh, we just missed the KO on their Calyrex, and also, they don't need a Sash. The good news is my Calyrex will definitely be slower than theirs, because it's 1 point slower than my Ursaluna. So I can just go that. I think here I Glacial Lance and... Glacial Lance and Lunar Blessing. Try to keep Cresselia from being knocked out by the seeds. See what they come up with here. They protect their Calyrex, makes sense, but they lose the Ursaluna, or the not the Ursaluna, the Urshifu. I always mess up my bear names for some reason. Their Calyrex gets some recovery though. Ooh, gets quite a bit of recovery. It's been leftovers Calyrex the whole time and I didn't notice. They're stalling out my Trick Room pretty nicely. I'm just gonna go Helping Hand Glacial Lance. But I think they'll get through this. I also think they'll knock out Cresselia. It is +1 Glacial Lance. It knocks out their Calyrex. Nice. That said, I now don't have Trick Room. Cresselia is low. They can knock it out. Of course, I can also try to set Trick Room with Calyrex. But I don't have it. I've already used my Terra anyway. Alright, well, I think my only play here is to try to set Trick Room with Calyrex. They can just knock it out so easily, right? Probably GG. Definitely some piloting issues, but brand new team, first game. It happens a lot in this series. You're used to it by now. Electro Drift Cresselia. They'll knock out Calyrex with an Ivy Cudgel. Can Dialga win this? They don't really have a great attack to throw at it. I don't really have great attacks to throw back, though. Step 1, I think, is Trick Room, and yeah, we just dropped with that. That Electro Drift is so much. And of course, so does the +1 Ivy Cudgel. Alright. We'll get another one. I will think about the switch to Urshifu. I don't know if I've changed the team that drastically mid-video before, but it was a tough decision in the first place, right? It was a close choice. This one has Duskmane Necrozma with Volcarona, Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon, Roaring Moon, Landorus, and... don't you love it? Eternatus. What Duskmane Necrozma is... it's definitely faster than Urshifu and Ice Rider Calyrex. I believe it's slower than Cresselia and Dialga. Faster than Brute Bonnet. Okay. I mean, good news is either of my big ticket physical attackers can put pressure on Eternatus immediately, so it's hard for them to set up and stall with it. The Volcarona is a bit of an issue, but it's more of an issue for Calyrex than it is for Ursaluna. I think Cresselia Ursaluna is a pretty reasonable lead once again here. Of course, I can't Earthquake the Landorus, but a lot of the rest of their team doesn't like dealing with that. And I don't know that they have an immediate threat to Cresselia. Maybe it's... I think... does Roaring Moon get Taunt? That could be an issue. But I'm going to do that lead again. I'll definitely bring Calyrex. I think that's very good here, and I think I just bring... I think I just bring Dialga, yeah? Maybe not. Honestly, the Landorus could be a threat, but yeah, I'll just bring my Restricteds. Alright, they lead Necrozma and Roaring Moon. Once again, they have the option to click Trick Room this turn, and they will successfully reverse my Trick Room immediately if they do that. But let's make them prove it. We go Knock Off into Cresselia. It does a lot of damage, removes the safety goggles, which probably don't need this game anyway. But Cresselia is so bulky, takes that Sunsteel Strike. I do kind of want to click Lunar Blessing here. But I think Helping Hand Earthquake might be better. I mean, Cresselia doesn't have to worry about taking damage if we knock them out. Which we certainly do. That's more like it. Their last two are Ogerpon and Eternatus. There are still 3 turns of Trick Room left. Ogerpon, I would imagine, can take an Earthquake. But let's Helping Hand Earthquake anyway. Let's just keep the pressure up. Try to get rid of this Eternatus. That would be a big deal. I don't think Ogerpon wins the game by itself. That did have to Ogerpon. And yeah, they knock out Ursaluna, but I still have both of my Restricteds in the back, and I think they understand that. They forfeit. Okay. That was the power of Cresselia and Ursaluna right there. Still putting in work in Reg I, although definitely harder to use than... That was a Reg D tech. People are using that all the way back in Reg D. I'm sure it went crazy then. I barely played Reg D. I mostly sat that format out. Here's the dreaded Shadow Rider Calyrex and Zamazenta team. But there's no Rillaboom. They have Incineroar, Tornadus, Grimmsnarl, Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon. They don't want to deal with Trick Room, but they have a bunch that I'm not eager to deal with. But surely if I bring Volcarona into a game as this one, the Tornadus changes things a little bit, but... I could lead Volcarona into Trick Room Setter. Volcarona Dialga. Volcarona Calyrex is reasonable too. Let's do Volcarona Calyrex. If they try to threaten Calyrex with Zamazenta, I don't think so. And then I'll bring Dialga and Ursaluna, I think, and leave Cresselia behind for this one. Just bring offense. No Levitate, but I do get Telepathy, still, potentially. They can click Taunt with Tornadus here, but I'm going to Terra Fairy, I'm going to Trick Room, I'm going to Rage Powder. They also can just attack Volcarona. They do Taunt, okay. But they don't deny the Trick Room unless this KOs, which it certainly doesn't. Now I can Glacial Lance and Struggle Bug pretty safely, I think. It's not ideal that the Glacial Lance comes out first, but it's fine, I think. Yeah. They don't have Wide Guard on the board. They do have Zamazenta, but it's not on the field right now. They switch out to Incineroar. I do have the Clear Amulet on Calyrex, but Incineroar will not take too terribly much damage here, I don't think. Calyrex just survives the Struggle Bug, which might actually be good. I might be able to get a Chilling Neigh boost from it, although that damage into my Calyrex is adding up. Oh, they also have Fake Out available this turn. Alright, well I'm going to attack with both my Pokemon anyway, because this way one of them can knock out the Calyrex if it tries to attack with Fake Out cover. And I could click High Horsepower into Incineroar, but I'm going Glacial Lance and Fiery Dance into Calyrex, because that way I get an attack into Calyrex regardless. They Fake Out and Protect here. It does kill a turn of Trick Room, but they don't do much damage. And now I feel fine to High Horsepower Incineroar and Struggle Bug, honestly. I could have clicked. I thought about clicking Fiery Dance into the Calyrex slot. That would have been nice, actually, to get Zamazenta with that super effective damage. Are they going to bring Calyrex back in and protect through the last turn of Trick Room? I don't know how I beat that, actually. Don't really want... So, okay, what I can do is protect Volcarona and switch to Dialga. I think they probably just protect through this turn anyway, but what that lets me do is Rage Powder Trick Room again with Dialga healthy enough that it should take... That actually doesn't work because Calyrex will knock out Volcarona before Zamazenta attacks. So once again, I'm running into the problem that I'm just running out of Trick Room turns, and this team is not well positioned to get the Trick Room back up. Alright, I'll just try to attack the Zamazenta. I think the Calyrex protects here. They both protect. That was always a possibility, of course. I think their Calyrex just takes 2 KOs. I guess I can protect something to get through that, but I don't know what the longer term play is. I think I just needed to knock that thing out while the Trick Room was still up, and credit to them, they didn't let me do that. I don't have Wide Guard on my team. Imagine if I did. Well, can't cover for everything, I guess. I'll just go for a Fiery Dance. They're not going to let me have it. I don't really see a line here. I'm just preserving the Calyrex because if a line is going to present itself, it probably involves that. I guess what I do here... I don't think it'll work, but I guess my one out is to click Trick Room with both of my restricteds and hope that they only KO one of them. It is possible that it works. They Heavy Slam into Calyrex. Oh, they don't KO! That's so bad! I reversed my own Trick Room. If that had KO'd, I had it. You know what? I'm going to do the same exact play again. You think I won't? Yeah, they're wise to it now. No, they're not. They Heavy Slam. I get the Trick Room up. If there's any chance, this is what it looks like. I think what I do here... I think I might have to double protect. No, you know what I do? I don't think they Wide Guard here. Earthquake. Don't have a good attack on Dialga to hit the Zamazenta. Well, Flash Cannon, I guess. They don't Wide Guard. Dialga takes nothing because of telepathy. Unfortunately, I don't have my burn yet, and the Zamazenta is so bulky and boosted. Now I've shown the Earthquake, but they have Tornadus in the back anyway. Why would I click Earthquake? Okay. Okay, I want to Headlong Rush Zamazenta. Zamazenta is either going to knock me out with Body Press, or it's going to Protect. Tornadus might not have Protect. So my options are this. I can Facade Tornadus, anticipating the Zamazenta to Protect. I can Headlong Rush Zamazenta, anticipating it to not Protect. Or I can Protect to catch them out if they Protect, and have a better, safer read next turn. But then I need to KO both of these Pokemon in the next 2 turns. I don't think the Tornadus has Protect, so I'm going to make the Protect play. They didn't protect Zamazenta. But they still could now. So I was hoping, obviously, that they would protect Zamazenta there, and I would have a pretty safe Headlong Rush into it. I'm going to say, this is so tough. If I get this call wrong, I lose. I'm going to say that they attack with Zamazenta, and I'm going to Headlong Rush it. Ah! I had a teacher in high school who said on multiple choice, follow your first conviction. The idea was, I think it's still Miss Bleakwind. The idea was, if you're not sure of an answer on a multiple choice question, there's a decent chance that whatever your first instinct is, you can trust your intuition. There's a decent chance that whatever your first instinct is right. So better to pick that than to overthink it. My first conviction there, I swear, was Facade into Tornadus, because they would protect the Zamazenta this time. But then I overthought it, and I decided that they weren't very protect happy. They rain dance so that they won't miss the Bleakwind. That's really smart. Alright, GG. If I had followed my old high school teacher's advice there, I would have clicked Facade into Tornadus and probably won the game. It happens. I don't know if my old high school teacher is any good at VGC, by the way. Not necessarily sure that his advice is the best, but maybe there was something to it. This is a sunny Sun team right here. But they also have an Eternatus. Calyrex threatens both of their restricteds before they Terastallize, and only one of them can Terastallize. It also threatens Rage and Bolt. It also kinda threatens Brute Bonnet, not that much. Not Entei. Kind of Flutter Mane if I get the Trick Room up. So I kind of am thinking I maybe lead Calyrex Volcarona here. Problem is Rage Powder doesn't work on Brute Bonnet. Fiery Dance works on Brute Bonnet, but it probably Terastallizes in front of Calyrex anyway. I could lead Safety Goggles Cresselia and Volcarona, and just put the restricteds in the back. I would probably like to have Ursaluna to pressure the Eternatus, but both of my restricteds also pressure it, so this is a little bit janky, but I think it's worth a try. They lead with their restricteds. I'll go straight for Trick Room. I don't think they're threatening to deny it. And I guess I'll just click Fiery Dance into Groudon. If it doesn't Terastallize... Oh, I see what they're doing. Alright, Levitate is no longer online, just as well that I didn't bring Ursaluna. Can I get my Trick Room up now? Volcarona is a +1 special attack. I might as well go for the KO on Groudon. They might Terastallize, but I don't think that would be a great use of their Terra. I'm not really super well positioned to switch my restricteds in, but if I get rid of Groudon, that might start to change. And by clicking Lunar Blessing, Cresselia can keep itself healthy. And if they stall my Trick Room turns, hopefully I'll do better at getting Trick Room back up than I have in most of this video. There's the Terrifier. Okay. Fair enough. Another Fiery Dance will still do it. If I get the chance, they knock out Cresselia. Don't love that for me, but I actually do love for me that I get Calyrex in here. Eternatus is weak to the Glacial Lance. Groudon is a fire type now, but it's at so very low HP. I can also Rage Powder in case the Eternatus survives or something. We're putting in a lot of pressure here. I might be able to keep Volcarona around until the Trick Room is over and then get Trick Room back up, which, as we've seen throughout the video, might kind of be determinative of how this game turns out. Go Entei. That is pretty threatening, to say the least. I actually think here I'm going to... I can high horsepower Entei. That leaves me a little bit vulnerable to Groudon. I can high horsepower Entei and Fiery Dance Groudon. Actually, that's fine unless Entei extreme speeds Volcarona, but if it does that, it's not attacking Calyrex. That doesn't quite work because Groudon can still attack Calyrex. I think I just need Groudon to not KO Calyrex regardless. I think I high horsepower Entei and I switch to Dialga. Preserve the Volcarona for one more Rage Powder. Groudon protects. Perfect. Entei's gone. One turn of Trick Room left. Groudon just protected, so it's probably not going to again, so I don't think I can make the double Trick Room play to reset it a turn early. Maybe it's for the best that I preserved that Volcarona, but a massive threat is now off the board with the Entei gone, and they actually just forfeit. I have no idea what their last Pokemon is, but apparently they had no confidence in it. Alright, we take those. Shadow Rider, Calyrex, Koraidon, Fluttermane, Rillaboom is correct, but I accidentally skipped Incineroar, and they have Urshifu. So they have the Rillaboom Incineroar duo that I was worried about. But they also have a very fast offensive teams that doesn't really want to play in Trick Room, but I guess Rillaboom and Incineroar help them through that by faking out and pivoting around and stuff. No wonder when I build hard Trick Room I usually have Indeedee, but not this time. Maybe I should have. I don't know. Indeedee and Cresselia on the same team, and Ice Rider Calyrex. It's not crazy, but I don't love it. So Volcarona and Brute Bonnet are supposed to be matchup pieces for some of these threats. Volcarona especially. I don't know that I can afford to bring both to a game. Maybe I can, because both my restricted Pokemon could set Trick Room. I don't really know that I need Cresselia or Ursaluna in this one. Calyrex Volcarona seems like a not crazy lead here, right? I can redirect an attack from their Koraidon. Calyrex Volcarona or Dialga Volcarona? I don't know which is better. I like Calyrex because it's more of an offensive threat, so it's nice to get that rolling immediately. I don't know if that's the best consideration here, but I was almost out of time, so gotta pick something. We'll double protect through a possible fake out here. Maybe I shouldn't do that actually, because they could click Nasty Plot. Alright, let's protect it with this still, and click Struggle Bug to help keep the Calyrex in check. I figured the fake out was going into my Calyrex. The Astral Barrage immediately. Struggle Bug also will break a possible Focus Sash on their Calyrex. It's Clear no, not Clear Amulet, it's Covert Cloak Calyrex. Okay. Both of those stop the Struggle Bug drop, but Covert Cloak is a lot more likely to be the item of choice. Here I'll Terra Fairy, Trick Room, and Rage Powder. Could be Safety Goggles and Incineroar. The Terra Fairy, we take an Astral Barrage. It is Safety Goggles and Incineroar. They knock off my Calyrex. They can Intimidate it now. Do not like that. But what am I going to do? Glacial Lance and... switch to Dialga, I think. Maybe I could have gone Brute Bonnet there. Terra Water, Shadow Rider. They just, their whole team is just kind of a nightmare for mine from the looks of it. Every item and Terra type choice that I've seen so far has been hard for me to deal with. Single Striker Shifu, also kind of hard for me to deal with. They can Sucker Punch my Calyrex here, and what am I going to do about it? Also, the Focus Sash could be on the Urshifu. Not that it needs it in this game. I do get rid of their Calyrex finally, but Urshifu has a chance to knock out Dialga. Okay. They still can Sucker Punch Calyrex, potentially. This is really rough. I actually can Sucker Punch them first with Brute Bonnet if they try that. But how do I ever beat their Incineroar? Also... no, there's no also. Do get rid of their Urshifu. One turn of Trick Room left. I brought both of my redirectors. I cannot Terrasilize Brute Bonnet, obviously. But I can click Rage Powder and High Horsepower into Incineroar. Okay, not the worst damage in the world, but I was looking to redirect Koraidon there. They have the safety goggles on Incineroar. I just have my 2 support Pokemon in the back. I think Koraidon just sweeps through all of this, but let's see if it can somehow be made to not. Flame Charge. I don't have Trick Room available anymore, but I do still have Spore, and I clicked it. Koraidon takes a nap. It'll take at least 1 guaranteed sleep turn. I'm obviously clicking Fiery Dance and Seed Bomb here. They could click Protect while they're asleep to deny the Sucker Punch. But if they did, it didn't work. And now... Fiery Dance KOs. So Rage Powder, Fiery Dance. They kind of threw with that Flame Charge. But we take those. And the team's not quite done yet. Shadow Rider, Calyrex, Female Indeedee, Whimsicott, Talonflame, Rayquaza, and an Urshifu. This team wants to go turbo fast. They have 2 Pokemon that mostly exist to set Tailwind. Although Whimsicott has a lot of other support options. And then of course they have priority on the Rayquaza. They probably have a distinct... They actually probably have 2 distinct modes with this team, right? Because Rayquaza mostly wants to spam priority with extreme speed. That doesn't have to be the set, but it's the most common one. Actually, they don't have Champao. It could be a different Rayquaza set very easily. I was going to say their own Indeedee makes extreme speed spam difficult, but Indeedee pairs nicely with Shadow Rider Calyrex. I wonder whether they have different Tailwind setters for different modes. It could be just a different Rayquaza set. For sure. I'm very worried about the Indeedee Calyrex Psy Spam. My Terra Dark Cresselia might be a starting point for dealing with that. Maybe with my Ice Rider Calyrex. Volcarona is an option as well, but I don't know how well it's taking a boosted Expanding Force. Brute Bonnet could be very strong. It doesn't have a Dark-type attack that works in Psychic Terrain, but it does have Spore. And that Psychic Immunity. But I think Cresselia Ice Rider is the call here. I can Trick Room and Glacial Lance at the same time. I'll bring Dialga, and I'll bring Brute Bonnet. It's potentially threatening into Rayquaza and stuff. Might have overloaded to deal too much with this mode, but this is what they're leading with at least. Apologies for sniffles. For some reason my allergies always hit super hard when I'm recording, even if they weren't before then. I need to plan better around that, I think, genuinely. I'm going to Terra Dark and click Trick Room. Nah. This is tough, actually. They are threatening the Astral Barrage. I didn't properly account for that. Maybe I don't Terra Dark. Maybe I Terra Fairy my Calyrex. I am down to try that, and I'll just go for Glacial Lance. They might shut down the Trick Room, but I should get the damage either way. Helping Hand is also an option, so I get more damage, and I can think about the Trick Room later, but realizing that I'm pressured to Terrasilize one of these Pokemon, I can't Terrasilize both, means, yeah, I kind of goofed up this lead here. Cresselia just gets one shot. That's really, really bad for me. Edie just goes for Dazzling Gleam. Oh, if I just click Trick Room with Calyrex. Because, of course, I can't... Sucker Punch their Calyrex right now. I can try to Spore it. If it's redirected into Indeedee, well, maybe it doesn't have safety goggles. My Calyrex is unboosted, so I don't feel too bad if I have to switch it out to Dialga, but for now I can just Protect. I'm going to try to get a Spore into their Calyrex. Is there any reason the Spore instead of clicking Seed Bomb. Oh, too late to cancel it now. There's the Follow Me. Is it Goggles and DD? Nope. Now I can Seed Bomb their Calyrex. I'll switch to Dialga, but that is letting my whole team get pretty low. Very dangerous. Good news is they don't have a whole lot of bulk on their team. Brute Bond and Dialga both barely take that. Calyrex drops with Seed Bomb. Maybe Spore would have been better so I could get Trick Room up more easily, but they don't really have a spread attacker. Unless a DD wakes up and pops off with that Dazzling Gleam now that Calyrex is gone. It's Rapid Strike or Shifu. I'm going to Rage Powder and Trick Room. This might not work, but I sure hope it does. And DD staying asleep would be ideal here. And there's one more turn of Psychic Terrain after that, so I can pretty safely... It wakes up. Dazzling Gleam. KOs. Okay. It happens. Sometimes the game is like that. I messed up the lead. I don't know what the better lead would have been, though. There's just so much pressure into my team from that Calyrex and DD lead. Maybe, or honestly, maybe Cresselia or Ursaluna would have worked better, because at the very least... I think Cresselia or Ursaluna was actually correct, because I could have protected Ursaluna, Terrestrialized Cresselia, set Trick Room. And then maybe they had a way to shut it down, but maybe Ursaluna could have just gone to work. And Ursaluna being there as a normal type pressures out Expanding Force instead of Astral Barrage, which is beneficial to Cresselia. So yeah, I didn't properly think through the Cresselia Ice Rider lead. I do have one more idea before I wrap up this video. Just needs a moment of prep. I kept talking about whether Brute Bonnet or Single Striker Shifu was better on the team, so we're going to play until one loss with Single Striker Shifu in that spot. Get a bonus 4th loss this video. Galarian Slowking, Ice Rider Calyrex, Miraidon, Iron Hands, Espathra, and Cetitan. This is some weird stuff. Yeah, it definitely should have led Cresselia or Ursaluna in that last game. That's still sitting with me a little bit, but it's time to move on. I guess I'll just leave Volcarona Calyrex here. I have the Rage Powder Trick Room option. Bring Dialga and bring... Honestly, Urshifu is not bad here. Iron Hands, Miraidon, okay. Let's just double protect through this turn. Shouldn't be too much they can do to punish that. Maybe I should have let them fake out Volcarona, although... because they had a chance to burn the Iron Hands, although letting them then knock it out would be not great. Rage Powder Trick Room here. This could burn Miraidon. Doesn't matter to its offense, but it's Chip. We at least get Rocky Helmet Chip. Oh, the Swords Dance Iron Hands is really scary. They might get me good with that. But I can go Dialga here. Glacial Lance, Terra Fairy, Draco Meteor. Terra Fighting Iron Hands. This is going to hit so hard. I hope they attack Dialga and not Calyrex. They attack Dialga. Drain Punch. It's some decent recovery, but the Draco Meteor knocks it out. Okay, good. I've not been thrilled with Dialga in this video. Flash Cannon and Draco Meteor is just not great offense. Probably could have afforded to drop Flash Cannon for something like Flamethrower. I think that might have been better. I think there's a very good chance that would have been better. I think I'm understating it. But anyway, the Glacial Lance here, and it's -2, but let's Flash Cannon their Calyrex. Anyway, I thought the Espathra might have a Focus Sash, but it didn't. They knock out Dialga. My Calyrex undersped theirs, though, so theirs might not be running min speed. Also, I can Sucker Punch it now. Yeah. And so, I have Sasher Shifu. I didn't show the set. It's this. There's no reason not to Wicked Blow. That's just guaranteed win. Alright, good debut for Shifu, but like I said, I'll play until I lose one game with it. Consider it DLC tacked onto the Brute Bonnet version of the team. Whoa, a Ditto. Haven't seen one of those in a while. Open team sheets immediately, okay. AV, Groudon, scary. Sash Venusaur, scary. Ditto, Groudon. Life Orb, Koraidon, Specs, Fluttermane. Got their own Covert Cloak Brute Bonnet. Okay. Safety Goggles Cresselia could be huge here for getting Trick Room up. Also a decent lead to throw at Groudon. Koraidon Fluttermane lead is really scary for Cresselia, but can't cover everything, right? And I could pair it with Volcarona. And bring my 2 restricted Pokemon. This doesn't feel like an amazing mode. Cresselia Volcarona. It is made a little bit better as a lead by the fact that I have to bring it against Sun teams, and Volcarona has been able to hit them pretty hard with Fiery Dance. And here it's Terra Fire Venusaur, okay. Terra Steel Groudon, that's different. I could Terra Grass the Volcarona. That would make it immune to Sleep Powder, but weak to... Well, it's weak to Groudon either way, but it doesn't feel like a great use of my Terra. But I will click this Trick Room with Cresselia is pretty free, I think. And I'll go for a Fiery Dance into Venusaur if they let me. It'll at least break the Focus Sash. They did not read my team sheet very carefully. We also survived the Rock Slide from Groudon. Volcarona survives Groudon Rock Slide. That's crazy. Trick Room up. Struggle Bug KOs Venusaur. Honestly, can I just switch? Maybe I don't want to switch Calyrex in on a possible Rock Slide. Can I just Lunar Blessing and Struggle Bug? Honestly, Volcarona might be able to win the game at this point, or I might get knocked out by a Rock Slide, in which case I get Calyrex in and just go to town. It's Precipice Blades this time. Cresselia is immune, Volcarona's KO'd. That gives me Calyrex. They could Terra Steel for sure. But I'm down to just Helping Hand and Glacial Lance here. There's the Terra Steel. This knocks out Venusaur. Doesn't do great damage to Groudon. Get to +1 now. Do we survive the turn? Iron Head. Didn't even notice they had that. Who's not reading team sheets carefully now? Ditto turns into Cresselia. They can click Lunar Blessing. But they can also reverse my Trick Room. But they can't protect their Groudon. I'm gonna Helping Hand. I'm gonna be aggressive here. I'm gonna Helping Hand and High Horsepower Groudon. I don't think there's a whole lot Ditto can do about that. They Helping Hand, but of course they're too fast in the Trick Room. The Groudon's out of here. Koraidon is last. It's the last turn of Trick Room. They could protect. They certainly could protect. Not great for me if they protect, but I don't have to think that all the way through because they forfeit. I was kind of looking forward to clicking that +2 Glacial Lance, but that's okay. We keep going until we take a loss with their Shifu. This person has 5 Pokemon. They are Shadow Rider, Calyrex, Incineroar, Zamazenta, Rillaboom, and Hearthflame Mask Ogrepon, so that actually is pretty scary, but I don't know why they don't have at least an Urshifu thrown in or something. How about I apply what I learned earlier, and I lead... Can I lead Cresselia or Ursaluna into this? Maybe I can't. I could do Cresselia Volcarona, actually. Because I can Rage Powder, Terra Dark. I can Astral Barrage, set Trick Room. Maybe it makes me vulnerable later in the game, but I think that's worth investigating. Break Calyrex for sure. And... yeah, Dialga is not well served by Flashkin in this video. When Dialga comes up on the wheel eventually, I think it's got to be Flamethrower or something instead. Anyway, last Pokemon for this one is... I can do Urshifu. I don't think Ursaluna makes sense here. Ursaluna's not crazy. I think Dialga is just not good enough here. I think it's Urshifu. Alright, we'll see. I'm very invested in getting this Trick Room up, and then... whatever happens, happens. I don't have Protect on Cresselia, so just Terrastallize and Trick Room. And I might as well, in that case, just click Struggle Bug. Maybe a Fake Out into something. They go straight for the Nasty Plot with Calyrex. They do not Fake Out. Calyrex is now... another Covert Cloak Shadow Rider. Are there a lot of those running around now? That is really bad for me. Because I got my Trick Room up, but I'm so very awkwardly positioned now. Honestly, I think a hard switch to Urshifu is the best I've got here. Should be able to get in without being KO'd. They parting shoot Volcarona, that's fine. Better that than Urshifu. They go Ogre Pawn, okay. So they follow me on the board. Astral Barrage knocks out Volcarona. It does so much damage to Urshifu. I don't have anything to take that. And they follow me on the board. This is such a scary team for only having 5 Pokemon. Just throw what I've got at it. Do they redirect the Wicked Blow? Probably, right? But you never know. Maybe they have a brain fart and try to protect in front of Urshifu instead of redirecting. They switch the Calyrex out, actually. Alright, well the Clear Amulet will preserve Calyrex's attack stat, but the Ogre Pawn can just go to town. That's a very good use of the pressure that their Calyrex is putting out. They have a free KO into something now. My Calyrex. Also Rocky Helmet Incineroar, so I can't attack it again safely. Cresselia can never damage it because I'm running Psychic. Maybe I get the Omega Turbo Mother of all crits. Maybe I need Lunar Blessing here, actually, to try to preserve Urshifu. Wicked Blow, Ogre Pawn, and Lunar Blessing. And I didn't cover for Fake Out, so... Alright, definitely time to stop playing for now. This team was awkward as heck. This is not how I would normally build a hard Trick Room team, that's for sure, and that's not changing right now. But it was kind of fun. We got some nice wins, especially with the duo of Cresselia and Ursaluna. I'd say that duo was a lot stronger in Reg D than it was now. I'd say my Dialga set was probably flat out bad. Let's look at Dialga on Munch Stats again. Those are the most common moves. All of them have majority usage. Maybe I just wasn't confident enough with Dialga. Honestly, that might have been it. I kind of psyched myself out with the not great coverage from its stabs. But yeah, this was an awkward team. Definitely not how I would normally build hard Trick Room, but for a Cresselia video, I think it was worthwhile. Cresselia and Ursaluna really popped off at some points, and of course we move on to the next legendary now, whatever that's going to be.